welcome to Politics 101. It's today's Tuesday evening's edition. Welcome all of you, whether you're joining us from Guyana or outside of Guyana, the wider Caribbean. Good evening to you. Those of you who join us from North America, good evening. Good evening to you in the United States of America. I know some of you are preparing for the Thanksgiving thing. Some of you, like myself, have to travel. But welcome to you. I know you Guyanese don't allow the Thanksgiving thing to stop your Guyanese duties. So welcome to you if you're joining us from the United States of America. Those of you from Canada, welcome. And of course, our people out there in Europe, in particular the United Kingdom, and Great Britain, England in particular. Good night to you. Well, good morning, because I think it's just past 12 there. And some of you joining us from France. From French Guyana and Suriname, welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. Please sound the bell and let them know that Politics 101 is on, so share the link. Tonight we are going to continue our conversation. Henry Jeffries here, Dr. Henry Jeffries here. Usual fortnightly conversation. Tonight we're going to concentrate on fact-finding mission. His latest column in the Village Voice this past weekend and reproduced as a letter in today's Stabroek News. And so we're going to be talking about that. So please spread the word. Politics 101 is on. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, and we're going to be talking about fact-finding mission. Lots happening on the news front. Just read a story there in Demerara Waves as I rushed in from campus to get started, that the young lawyer that was arrested for telling her client to plead the fifth, that she has been compensated by the police and apologized. The police has issued an apology that we have seen in the Demerara Waves report. I think it's a couple of hours ago. I just had a quick read. Welcome to you, Mr. White, from out there on the east bank of Demerara, Grove area. Welcome to Politics 101. Leonard, I know you were very early. Some people stand by very early before the program starts. So I want to commend you for that. The Venezuelan issue is still very much in the news. As you know, our party, the WPA, issued a statement over the weekend in which we called for, for the government to setting up a broad-based task force, one, and to consider a counter referendum in Guyana, asking Guyanese to affirm our territorial space. So those are a couple of proposals coming out of the WPA statement. The PNC had its general council over the weekend, and the statement saying that they spent a lot of time talking about party unity, and they also reaffirmed their commitment to defending Guyana's territorial integrity. So a lot happening on the party political scene. As you know, the fact-finding mission came and went. The government didn't meet with them, but they seem to have met with a White Cross section of certainly the target population, the African Guyanese community, and I noticed some Amerindian groups also met with them. So welcome to Politics One. Let's bring in Dr. Jeffrey right away. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David, and good evening to all your guests and lookers.
Yes. Your column this weekend and reproduced today as a letter in the Kaito News, fact-finding mission in Guyana's ethnic context. So in the column, you are looking at fact-finding within our peculiar context, peculiar because we are an ethnically, not because we're an ethnically plural society, but we're among the most divided societies in the world. And so in that sense, it's peculiar. And we have ethnicity playing out right now in front of our faces with the war there in the Middle East between the Israelis and Hamas. So ethnicity is very much on the front burner. I use a book by Professor Esmond, and he reckons that there are about over 200 active ethnic conflicts around the world, and that was a few years ago. So ethnicity is it's real, and ethnic division, ethnic conflicts are real. What prompted you to pen that column?
Well, first of all, Guyana is unique even in terms of plural societies. In that there are not many countries like Guyana in the world, as a matter of fact. You have ethnic concerns in almost every country in the
Yes.
world. And even if you go to Britain, if you go to America, you see they have to include ethnic people in their governments and all that sort of thing to take care of the concerns on the street, that we are part of the governance structure. In Ghana, we are not simply a plural society. We are a bicommunal society. Now that moves the game far on. And by that I mean about 40% of the people on both sides, the parties, if you put it together, 80% of the people come from two parties. The voters, I mean, come from two parties, and they vote for the parties regardless of what happens. So you can sit down and curse Granger and perhaps curse Jack Deal till you're blue in the face. It would not stop the people from voting for them. It has not in the past, and it would not in the future. And the result is there's no accountability in any sensible way. And when you are Guyana's the capacity of the parties to do all sorts of electoral manipulations in Guyana, well, then you end up in a different game. When the PP was in office, let me say just before 1992 and after 1992 somewhat, when they still had 53% of the vote, you can see what that means. It means essentially you can have an ethnic dictatorship. That it doesn't matter what the other side says. This side won't be moving, and therefore, if you go to election in a what we're going to call the kind of Westminster type liberal democracy, majoritarian rule, what you mean that the PPP can be in power forever, and you can't do nothing about it, essentially, because their people is going to vote for them every single time, and it doesn't matter because they prefer a bad PPP government to what you are promising. So, and there are few countries in the world like this, and with changes here and there and little movement. Look at Fiji. Look at Northern Ireland. Indonesia was a bit like this, but not the same way. And look at Israel. You have Israel before you, where for different reasons, I mean, we are dealing with a differentiated kind of thing, but for different reasons. The Israelis want a country of their own. They don't want anybody else to be able to change that country to be in terms of rule. They mean that they must rule regardless of who else is there. Now you can understand that in a way because the Israelis, the Jews have had a hard time throughout history and all of that. And they're one of the, well, maybe there are others, I don't know. But they're one of the few people that don't have a place that they can run to for sanctuary. And they have decided, the Zionists at the turn of the previous century, that they need to have a place that they can run for sanctuary. And they want to be in control of that space. And the British agreed to help them to be in control of that space. And that is why they're fighting, how they are treating the Arabs. And it's terrible. But I mean, what essentially that is their goal is simply to have a place of their own, and that has been totally messed up in the 1940s by the British, who was the first one, who was the first country to accept that Jewish notion, the Zionist thing in the 1890s that says Israel wants to build a country for Israel. So effectively, we are a country like that. And the result is that when you have, we are a bicommunal society. We are not just a normal multi-ethnic society. It means then that you don't have, for the most part to this day, you don't have any kind of proper accountability or anything like that. And the result, what I am saying here, is that most people seem to understand. Well, most of the people the people like you seem to understand that this kind of system need to change, and that is why I have written this. This. I'm trying to put it in the context. It's not simply like America. America is easy. America is easy. You have some superiority racists, and plenty of them, most of them, as a matter of fact. And what they did was set up all sort of arrangements to discriminate against Black people. All manner of things. Housing, every place you turn, education, you go. That's why you have in America so much racial disparity analysis. You live there, so you should, and can show you from every area in your life, from medicine, from birth, from childbirth, you can see what's happening to Black people because what has happened. But that is simple, because remember, you are essentially the African Americans were essentially minority. And the result is that you have to struggle against this majority to get changes. Here, it is totally different. It's not like that. It is not like that at all. It is people who want to maintain their dominance in the political process that is struggling for power over you. And they're setting up that kind of arrangement to stay in power. Essentially, ethnic party, PPP got 90% of the votes from the Indians. The Africans, the AFC got 90% of the vote from those of African ethnicity. So what you have is a different situation altogether. You do not have what you may call a homogeneous society or a dominant ethnic society as America.
Let me read this quote from your column. You said the question is not whether the PPP is discriminating against African Guyanese and the social, political, and organizations. It does not even make a great effort to hide it any longer.
Yeah, oh, go on.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Comment on that.
But it's but you know that it doesn't make. Imagine you got government minister says if you want your road done, you gotta join the PPP, you gotta support the PPP. Imagine you got a if you got a sports arrangement where people say, hey, if you want to be in sports, and that was a black community they're talking to, and the African Guyanese are essential thing in sports, saying you got to let us, you got to support the PPP. This thing, they don't. In the old days, they used, well, not old days because it wasn't old days, but not so long ago they used to hide it. But right now, that's what they do. Imagine they say to your representative that you vote with the parliament, we are not talking to you because you say we re-election. Didn't they say you re-election too? Huh? The PVP stopped doing that. They got this one Guyana joke going around the place. But the point is that what they are saying, they never intended to speak to you anymore. They set up gold scholarship. They want to be in control of everything. So you had ways to give scholarship before, but it was governmental and all. They set up their own system so they can give scholarships who they want. This
Why the change? Why the change from masking to now open?
Because, in my view, you have a lot of people. Remember, I said since 2013, a lot of people are coming about. The Americans tell them in 2020 that they must change the winner-take-all system. Well, they got to show the Americans now that they are not a minority party. They are not even, they got to show that they got substantial black votes. They're using the public purse to buy people on the street to vote for them. So that's the reason. It's no longer masking, because effectively what you have to do is to demonstrate now that you have, let me say, 15% of black people voting for you. Because Carter and Center, as I said in here too, was saying for the longest while. Now the Americans saying, they're saying be inclusive, what Starbuck News call unprecedented. They say clearly the winner takes all system must be changed. Today I see Ravi Dev talking about, not today, yesterday, talking about, what was he saying? About
You know, a nation of minorities, so we don't need power sharing anymore.
But gridlock, it's going to cause gridlock.
Because gridlock.
Well, and then he mentioned the 7,000 Indians that he said that the PNC stuff. Don't you think that it was better we have gridlock than for you to knock off 7,000 people?
Yeah.
Didn't you think it was far better for Guyana and those people? You disrupt, if the PVP was on that table, no way Granger would have done that. Furthermore, he wouldn't have even brought it. Because he can't get through with it. He's not gridlock better than that. Or he's saying he's preferred gridlock to that. That because we might have gridlock, knock off 7,000 Indians where you're like, disrupt their life if you want. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's nonsense, but people say it because, it's part of
easy
the
to say, yes.
It's foolishness. It's better the PPP was there to say, boss, well, as I said, the PNC would not have brought it.
Yeah, but Henry, what I find with the Ravi Dev thing since you introduce it is that he seems to be saying, look, the basis for power sharing in the first place had to do with the fact that you have a majority group in the society. When we all know that the basis for power sharing, as you said just a few minutes ago, is that neither ethnic group want to be governed by the other.
And they're dominant. It's not like they're 5%.
That's right.
You see, it's not like you can't win a one-seat majority and doing what the PPP doing. No, but you remember, that is his only argument. That's the only
Yes,
argument he can
right.
possible put forward. But what I'm saying to you, that you can't win a one-seat majority and spending the resources how you're doing things you're doing. It should not happen in any country, anywhere. And they know they're being told that. Yeah. So effectively, that is why we have come out boldly now. They got to
Right.
go and buy black people vote. They got to force them more hard into it. They got to shout as Orphan does, "In my life, one Guyana will be." Somebody must tell him that's what black preachers do. So he think they're going to do it. Well, but it's nonsense. It's all a joke. The essence is, and I heard someone, yes, and he was saying Orphan. Oh, look at the party, look at the numbers, look at our cabinet. The entire cabinet can be filled of black people. It's who can got the power at the end of the day. And that is not cabinet power. That's another way of what we used to say in the old days, mama guying people.
Mm-hmm.
This minister, who got the power? The people in the party for the most part. And you ain't control the party. You and even if you had half party members as African Guyanese, the party is an oligarchy, so it's about 2-3 people. Imagine people on the street just question whether or not Orphan has power.
Yeah.
And Orphan telling you, look what black people in the party, that mean they're powerful. It's a joke. The whole thing runs on a kind of joke. It's being run on a kind of notion that we have almost a homogeneous society, and that all of this is, because that's what Westminster type system is supposed to do, but we are not a Westminster type society.
There you go. You spent 2 long paragraphs on the trade unions, and I had Professor Thomas yesterday, and he was commenting because that was part of the submissions the WPA would have made to the fact-finding mission if they had gotten a chance to meet with them. The way in which the government treats the PSU, GPSU, and now the GTU, as opposed to how it treats, let's say, GAWU and NASI, all right? That era trade unions, 2 representing mostly African Guyanese government workers, and the other representing mostly Indian Guyanese. The government recognizes collective bargaining with one, meets their wage demands, not even meet with the other 2 unions, and constantly ridicule them in the public space. And it's interesting that you spent a lot of time on that. Expand on that for our audience.
Well, what I was trying to say is that, what is this thing about McDonald being the president of the GTO? Kamal Chan wasn't the president of GAWU. He wasn't sitting in Parliament. I mean, I don't like calling him because I think this thing is more than name calling. But Kamal Chan was there. You have always had Chetty Jagan wasn't sawmill workers union even before the union is started. I mean, all of our the born wasn't GLU. I mean, let's stop the crap. Those are only excuses to introduce and do all kinds of things to establish your dominance. The point, it makes no sense. I said, I hear that now they said they're going to pay the teachers their salary. I'm waiting to see that before I say anything. I wrote a thing and saying that I was Minister of Education once, and I know my argument with the teachers is that you are getting 3.4% of the GDP as salary, and if you go around the world, that is what countries like us pay. I want to see what they get. Well, I know they ain't got the 4.3% of the GDP, but you can't, as I said in this program before, you can't deal with the GDP because Exxon got with most of that. You got to deal with GNI, gross national product, or something like that. Uh, income, gross national income, or something like that. So effectively, that is what the and GPSU has been going through. I'm telling you, see how Fort if it was operating. GPSU has been going through this for the
Yes,
longest while.
Clive Thomas says that he is confident that the arbitration award of 1999 is what the PSU has been beaten up because of that arbitration award. And they are, ever since then, he has traced how the PPP has been super hostile to the GPSU. But even before then, the PSU was going through problems.
Remember, you got to go back even a bit further than Clive says there. The GPSU was instrumental in overthrowing the PPP
The
system.
PPP in the 1960s, yes.
Right. So they came down there, they came in very concerned about the GPSU. All right. You remember what Cherry Jagan said when all this was happening? I think Clive was on the committee. Cherry Jagan said, old. That's what I'm telling you. We don't know where this would have gone if Cherry Jagan was in office. When they start saying they want this, they want it, Cherry Jagan says to them, he says, open all the books of the Ministry of Finance and let me set up a committee and let them show us we can pay. You should amazing problem Cherry Jagan had with that. I was there as Minister of Labor. The amazing people say, open the books so they think. Well, they did open the books. And then Cherry Jagan died. And then the results come in. And then instead of just normal public servants, they say it's for the entire public servants and all of that. And from then, I believe you start having this. And well, I said it numerous times. The problem here started. GPSU might have gotten beaten up for then. In the same year with the GPSU, I was labor teachers had. Oh, I must tell you. Let me remind you guys. I think I said this here again before. The same year of the Armstrong arbitration, the teachers also had problems, I think. And the same year, because the power was vested in me to determine the arbitration, because that's the end product. Like we are this court now with Venezuela, there's a kind of arbitration. The arbitration is the product, the end product. If once you have decided you can't deal with your thing yourself, you got some kind of conciliation, and then you go to arbitration. The question is now how to set up the arbitration panel. And I would, well, the minister can do that. And so I did it. I think it was Father Rodriguez.
Father Malcolm Rodriguez.
And they had a thing. Well, for the public servants, I didn't have that power. The law said no, the two parties must determine the chair. Well, I put up a lot of people. I put up Christopher Naz. I put up, they don't want, they are both parties. Okay. And my sister Patrick called me and tell me them about Aubrey Armstrong. I said, yeah, I know Aubrey from St. School, good father. And I said, okay. And I took it first to the GPSU. I said, what about Aubrey? No, I took the PPP for it to Dr. Lunch. And he said, yeah. You know, we used to sit down and gaff all day. I mean, when Aubrey come to town, Saturday afternoon, they gaffing apparently, you know, in there. I never saw them, but I said, God, so that might work. So then I called the GPSU and I said to Patrick, I said, Patrick, this is your thing. There it is, it's Aubrey. He said, yeah. Well, I don't know what happened later when he maybe found out that I'm sorry, I used to be sitting with them. He can't look and say, you sure, man? Gaskin was there at the time, Gaskin.
Yes.
So yeah, I said, no, it's gone. You can't change your mind. And perhaps a good thing he didn't change his mind because Aubrey. I don't know what I did to Aubrey. Indeed, before Aubrey did anything, when he landed the country, he came to me and said, I told him, what is the government position? What is the other position? And I said, that's my take. It's your thing to do what is right from your standpoint as the chairman of this tribunal. But apparently somebody been harassing Aubrey. I don't know who, and maybe throw him off rails. And the result was the result.
Right. And the PPP was Gobin Ganga,
The PPP,
the government representative.
no, the PPP wasn't go. PPP, no, Jordan.
Was Vincent Jordan on the arbitration committee?
Yeah, I
No,
think so.
I think it was Gobin Ganga.
No, not one person. It's three. It's three person on each side, and then one person. Jordan used to work at the ministry.
I know Jordan used to work at the
I think he was
ministry.
one of the yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think I'm wrong, but it was three people on each side, and then the chairman.
Oh, three on the other side. Because Clive Thomas represented the PSU.
Yeah, the tribe. Thomas, not only Clive Thomas, there were others. There were others there, and it's like 2 and 1. The chairman, they get together, or 3 and they get together, and to form the thing. So that was really it. But that wasn't. You see, that is now really triggered this as such. What triggered this is when Janet Jackson get overthrown. Mm-hmm. You see the strikes and thing, and they start realizing this is a bi-communal society. You can't run it in the normal way. And there's 2 ways, as I said numerous times, of running a bi-communal society. You gotta share power, or you gotta be a dictator. Look at Israel. Look at Fiji. Look at Northern Ireland. Before they made arrangements. Only way to deal with the bi-communal society. And look at Guyana. It's your dictator. So they start realizing it, but they're doing it as sneakily because they're in the Caribbean. They're in a country with a whole lot of liberal democratic government. And that's why they would do. They had to be a bit sneaky. But after it comes out that this thing ain't working, I mean, after the Americans put out their thing and so on, and called them to Washington to tell them, they must be telling Americans, oh, we are not the ethnic party. We are a party for all Guyanese. Well, the PNC says that too, but people say, don't be ridiculous. You're getting 90% of your vote, your party, and you are not accountable. Anything you do, you can, I think the most you coerce anybody in the Barjag, the most you coerce him, the more popular he becomes. Because you're not your representative, but to his. Because what they're seeing is a man standing up for his people. Look at Putin in Russia. Putin thing has not moved. His popularity, you saying his popularity ain't gone away. Because he's seen as a man fighting. So the more you cross him, the more popular he becomes with his people. Even your people might say he's a this and that and that, but there's neither here nor there. The truth is that he becomes more popular because he looks like a man that's fighting for its cause. But let me ask you something, as I've asked you before on this program. When the PPP was in office, tell me one thing that Jack Joe did to stop Granger from doing what he wanted to do. Nothing.
Nothing. No.
Nothing. Nothing, because there is a system set up like that. You can do nothing. You can talk a lot and go, oh, well, make noise, and perhaps some people like noise. But during they could have changed street number, street, they've changed all the ministries name, all sort of things, some of them wrongly. But what until somebody called you and said, oh, they overstepped the bounds and they need to go. And you know the thing.
Right.
Regime change, regime change 101, call the leader of the opposition.
I noted in when you mentioned Janet Jagan, you said when Janet Jagan was overthrown, and that's an interesting formulation. One that
No, when I said she was not, she was thrown out of office.
I know what you meant. I know what you meant, but I'm saying I'm saying that's an interesting reading that a lot of political scientists wouldn't say, because you
would not accept that Janet Jagan just got sick and go here.
No, I know that. I know
why she went.
I know it was the pressure from the road,
David,
and the PNC was on the streets. The strikes was on, and she couldn't. I mean, in the first place, my view is that she should have said no, given the nature of this society. I understand she asked. I'm quoting Beto Ram Ramarak, who said that she asked David Debordine, are they protesting against me because I'm white? Right?
My dear friend.
Yes.
My dear friend. Myself and Odinga Lumumba was campaigning in South. We have been campaigning in South for the PPP for the longest while. Nobody get angry. They know they never vote for us, and perhaps we know that, but we go, we carry, we thing, and we are hoping, and so on and so on. The minute they start here about Janet Jagan gonna be president, the people throwing all sort of things. That lady promised throw urine on us and come to the and I said, no. So I said, no. I went, I told you that. I said,
you told them that?
Of course. I said, Mom, you shouldn't run. I said to her, Mom, you should not run. I said, Black people don't like you. And they are 10% of the country. And she took me to the back of the blue room there, and she told me the whole stories that people always think it's she and it's not her and all of that. At the end, I said, I'm not saying anything with you. All I'm saying, I think too many people don't like you. And they're ethnic people. It's not like they're going to change their mind tomorrow. They have been saying, you have been demonized. You are the Burnham of the PNC. PNC never demonized Jagat. The PNC never demonized Jagat. They demonized Janet. Just like the PPP demonized Burnham. So these are the bad people. And that is what occurred. And, there's another part to the story, but don't bother.
Good evening to you all. I'm sure the audience is loving this here tonight.
What I'm saying to you, no, but I told her, because my duty, Chetty Jagan always said that to me. He says, don't do anything for this party you don't want to do. And seriously, tell this party anything you want to tell them.
I was on a radio program in Washington, D.C., WPFW. It was a Saturday afternoon when they announced that she was going to be the prime minister, and so therefore they like it. And I said on the program, it just came out, what a big mistake. Because I mean, I didn't have to read that in a book. It's one thing, the black-brown conflict. It's another thing when you introduce a white person into the mix in a society that is already racially sensitized. It was bound to be. I mean, those people bring out all the Dali and beat it up.
To tell the truth, I didn't think it like that. I thought, well, it was all right. And until I start seeing what I'm seeing on the street.
On the streets, yeah.
I didn't think like that. I actually thought so. So she spent a lot of. I'm gonna get my from. So what? She spent a lot of time in the country. She's a Guyanese. She worked for working people, and that was my take until I see what is happening on the street, and then I said I gotta tell. No, I'm gonna go and tell her. She ain't gotta do nothing about it.
Yeah.
But I gonna tell her. But you see, so that is Guyana for you.
Yeah, and you know that thing, when during the Cold War and so on in Jamaica, people accepted Seaga. The minute Jamaica elected P.J. Patterson, the first black man, they started to turn on Seaga, and he was so surprised that Jamaicans turned on him. I mean, he's essentially a brown white man, and so on. And insofar as the Cold War and the two parties, and Michael Manley was around another quote-unquote half-white man, the minute they elected P.J. Patterson, Jamaican people turned. And Seaga fight and could never get in. And they actually cited his whiteness as part of the thing that they don't want to back.
But you had Tom Adams in Barbados too. But you know, it is not in Ghana, not simply whiteness. It's that she was demonized. Everything they didn't like about the PPP is she did do it.
Yes, yeah.
She outlined things from St. Linden and going to, and I said, I understand all this, but there's no use you saying that. No, that is the reality on the ground.
Yeah,
so
no.
Why you think every time people they start about Burnham, the wicked Burnham, they were even demonized by the PPP. He's the demon in the PPP. They demonized. PNC never demonized a Chadi Jacob. And what the result? At the end, black people come out from all the places. And they used to say, poor Chadi, Janet doing
that. Right. No, I grew up in Buxton hearing the big people saying that Janet stood up with success and said she wanted to see right through to Enmore, which means she wanted all the black people. And people were saying that with a straight face. Since I was
obviously it was nonsense. But what image is, I mean, she might have meant PPP supporter, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what was in people's minds. And therefore, that is the country we live in. This country, and I know you started by saying, the devil saying, oh, you can win now, but you can only win by one seat and so on.
That's it.
And that don't make sense. Even if you win, you have Africans out there or Indian out there not accept your winning in the sense that this is not a homogeneous society. You are, when you operate in a given way, they themselves said, look at Granger with these 7,000 Indians. Oh, I'm going to send that to the group. You think the group don't know that? It's America you're talking about. There must be no guy more than us. This thing, but when they say those things, I think they're talking to constituents more than anything else. So effectively, that is, you cannot have a one-seat majority and hope. This is not the country for an homogeneous kind of a Westminster type arrangement. You have to have shared governance of some form if you want to run it democratically. Other than that, proceed as you are. In an autocratic fashion.
Here is a very important part of your column and something that I've heard you on before, and I want you to elaborate here tonight. You say, at about the turn of the century, the PPP began to lay the foundations of the drive for ethnic political dominance. And this led to economic stagnation.
Well,
and you want them to say what the IMF said and so on. Elaborate on that for us.
Well, what happens? You have a situation where now people are on the street fighting, struggling, and so on. And then you had a jailbreak. When was 2004?
2002. 2002.
2002. So all this now, crime intermixed with politics. And it was that. But remember, it's at the same time that Janet Jackson resigned.
Right.
It's then when she come to realize the reality of Guyana, that effectively you can't run it democratically in a normal sense. But instead of saying, I buy this thing can't run democratically in the normal sense, in a homogeneous society, instead of calling our people and say, hey, we need to have some kind of sharing of power and all that sort of thing. Janet Jackson was the chief communist. And that is not anybody saying that. She knows about the dictatorship of the proletariat, and so far she was concerned, the PPP was the proletariat and the dictatorship of the proletariat and all of that. You know, the vanguard party in Guyana, after all, she and Jenny wrote the government, wrote to Stalin, because what Stalin wrote to us, said, oi, we want to bring Guyana and the entire Caribbean into your camp. And when the American, you know, and that thing they are trying to cover up all over the place, and with time with the Venezuela border. But that's another discussion at the time. But effectively, it means quite clearly that that's what most people of Imawe grew up with. That Jagan was a nice man, that he did the Americans nothing. And they just overthrow him with the help of the black racists and the African racists. They just overthrow him. Burnham didn't even want to join the group. Carl Blackman tell me, who carried Burnham to Park Hotel to talk to him? He said, Burnham didn't even want to join.
But Guyana said he had to put on long boots.
Yes.
In the rain and go down to Congress Place to help to convince Burnham, because Burnham wanted to leave Chedi to run a minority government, I understand.
Yeah, you say you can go and live in Ghana, Dr. tell me, and I'll start the confusion. But what I'm saying to you, when they do that, but I said, just like you demonize Janet, they demonize thing because, and of course, by definition, you are voting for them black people. And the only thing they had in their favor to use was racism. Only thing, because it does not normally with anything big socialist and all, they're far better as a capitalist group. So effectively, what they have to do now is saying it's racism on the part of the PNC, racism thing, and all the black people racist, and that's where everybody grew up on. The PNC had a different take. Because Burnham is in power, you can talk about universalism. They're still talking about it up to there. We will bring everybody together, and therefore you got a little different take. But remember, Jang ain't got nothing. They had nothing left to mobilize the people but racism. Mobilize, and racism is a potent kind of thing. And that is what you have up to this day.
So at the turn of the century, they decided dominance is the way to go. What is
Jagan decide?
Okay.
Because that was the only way to go, and it is the only way to go. It's either you become a dominant force, and even if you gotta be dictatorial, or you gotta share. And that's why she had no choice. There's no choice. Burnham may come up with them same one Guyana thing where he got. All right, you can say that was in the time of the Cold War, and he was a little dictator. Not really, he was obviously a dictator. But the point is, but that is the nature of Guyanese society. About 6 countries like us in the world.
Yeah. Janet Jagan is quoted when asked about power sharing. She said, you don't win power and hand it over to somebody else.
Exactly.
She was very frank.
Exactly. Like if you're the winning of power is the central feature of constitutional government. It is not. It is the nature of the Constitution. Look at America. Look how many people. Look, Trump. Look, what's her name? Got more votes than Trump, yet he ended up president. Because it's the nature of the Constitution. And the Constitution must be acceptable by nearly all of us. Now, but 51%. How they just put it, they say it must be acceptable to substantially all of us. When they were trying to make the American Constitution, there were argument that if you must have a vote for everybody must agree to the Constitution. Some people didn't even go in at first.
And that's right.
So effectively, it must be acceptable to substantially all of us. You put this Constitution to a vote today and see if you can get substantially all of us. That's something that happened till up the years. There are something said colonial times almost. And that is it. So that's where we are. But I take think by saying, I live in the most exciting place in the world, one of the most unusual. It's like having a rare diamond.
Good evening to all of you. Good evening, Miranda Brown. Commissioner Cole, how are you doing, my sister? I saw Sister Nima Flew Bess here earlier. Good evening, MP Bess. I know I owe you an appearance here to talk about that meeting you went to in Ghana and so forth. It will be sooner rather than later. Good evening to Stanley, all of you, Ali Cock, good evening to you. You're all around to Politics 101. And as usual, once we have Henry Jeffrey on, we are bound together. Miranda is asking, did Dr. Jeffrey say, the Dr. Jeffrey said that Burnham was a dictator? Yes, Miranda, she said that. And everybody knows that he was a very dominant leader, and it doesn't mean that the other side didn't have dictators. We have them now in our faces. The system breeds that kind of leader. What the Africans used to call it, Jeffrey, benevolent dictators. The Africans felt that.
But you see, it's Burnham's context. Burnham didn't become a dictator in the sense. First of all, the British, after I bet they found out that Janet wrote the Soviets and say, oh, they are communists. Good. So they decided that Chad is out of play. And therefore, I'm trying to contextualize Burnham becoming what I call a dictator. They said Chad is out of play. They try and they work on Burnham. They were working on Burnham. And Burnham got this thing, he was still there with them socialists and thing and hanging and so on. The British knew that too. So effectively, if it wasn't Burnham, as they said, there would have been another Burnham. You don't fool yourself. There'd have been another Burnham. Because it's Burnham and Degar accepted the thing. Look, we got to get rid of Chetty. He's a communist. And all the Caribbean leaders did, because the Americans must pass the word down the line. There's no way he could have gone and complained. You were talking about some mission. Come here. Chetty went on mission every place of the world to complain. Every place he can find in the whole world, he went to complain. Rightly so, he got the problem, So effectively, they put Burnham and Degar. And I said a week before last, Burnham didn't start rigging election against Jagan, The British was rigging election against an American since 51. They start rigging election. Imagine you got one seat one single seat in Georgetown, you can get it for 5,000 votes or something. When you go up to Borbis, where Chedi Jagan Guy constituency, you must see will get about 12,000. They were rigging elections from 1953. Well, not 53. After that, so
Right, 57.
57. 60, they were rigging, but they weren't getting through. That is why they want to change all the constitution to make 18-year voting, proportional representation. That never existed in the British system. But they're saying when you look at the vote, Jagan winning the election, and these elections you were winning by, like happens in most first past the place. Margaret Thatcher used to win with 39%. He winning with just about 40 something percent of the vote. And they says, no, we got a way of beating him. And the result is that is why they introduced it. But they were rigging before him. Burnham was with them. And that's why Burnham, when he was with the Garfield, they were rigging to keep Chedi out. Well, why can't we to keep the Digar out? Because he's a dead. He's a dead capitalist. They set him up here to control me. I think if you ask Corbyn or men, you're gonna hear they tell you that Burnham tell him, look, because when Burnham joined with the UF, the YSM nearly revolt against you, well, start a little thing. And he called him and he said, look, but you watch yourself. Yeah, you're a graph, you understand it. I can get rid of the guy, can't get rid of Chedi. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. It's not gonna happen. So effectively, Burnham said, well, I'm a little socialist. He's a capitalist. They think he's gonna control me and carry me with capitalism, but it's not gonna happen. So Burnham, the minute he had the chance, he said, well, he go and rig election. Me have no. I mean, but remember, this is happening in the context of Jagan saying, if I win, I carry you, and the Americans have a right. And I think it is a correct thing they did to say, if you gonna carry me, because I want no communism, me want to live in no communist state. And if effectively you believe that, I tell you, I got this thing 100 times. I didn't know that there was a letter around with this sending to the Soviet. But I said, Chedi, people believe you are. And if they do believe you are, well, then you can't rule. And in the way you're behaving, you look like you are, because you're working at the whole world, going with the worst dictators and saying that you are their friends. I used to invite Chedi to come to Kurukuru when all the PNC people say, oh, what are you doing that thing? I invite Chedi. He used to come and open discussion, open lectures. And I used to come. Well, I never wanted to, but since certain people don't turn up, I have to turn up myself and tell them these things. Me and Chedi always had this discussion. But it's only now it come out clearly that the Americans had good reason to say he was a communist. They wrote a letter, apparently. Well, not apparently, but well, yeah.
Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Henry, so the fact-finding mission came. They met with African Guyanese, Amerindian Guyanese. They met with the political parties, the organizations. What was the benefit of a fact-finding mission of that nature?
You see, as I said, that happened in the case of Northern Ireland. It was and I wrote this long time, so it is nothing to do with the fact-finding mission. It was the Guyanese overseas that got Biden, who was a central man in that process.
You mean the Irish people overseas?
Yes, the Irish people overseas will come together and get Clinton to start looking at the issues.
Yes,
in a way. And I see all these fact-finding missions as an attempt, as an attempt to do just that, and that they are going to spread the message. And America is a big society; they're going to spread what they have seen.
Yes.
They're going to spread what they've heard. They're going to spread all these things. And it's no use, I think it's a good thing, because I think that this is totally correct that the system be changed and that we run a system as best you can in our context as a liberal democracy. So I don't have, I mean, that is why I said, let me contextualize it and put it in a framework. It is not America where some people just discriminate on you because they like black people and they think they're inferior and all that thing. It's more than that. It's the political oligarchs in the parties that are taking over and believe that they can run the system and imagine Barnum start a career talking about one people, one nation, one destiny. Often, how long after coming about one Guyana? It's a good thing you only take one syllable out of the thing. I mean, it's foolish. And these people, people try this. People tell you before. Since 1861, James Short Mill could tell you that by this kind of society ain't going to go well. It's in the 1940s and 1950s, remember, with Louis Sorata, who is thought to be the father of shared governance by nobody here want to take anything from anybody. It's those who don't want it want to control people. That is the essence of it all. If you say we're going to share, well, if we don't agree, let me have a deadlock. It's better you have deadlock than racism. It's better you have deadlock than don't give the teachers a salary. It's better than you saying, we're going to have gridlock. What is gridlock? Gridlock means there is democracy on the ground. And you can't do to people what you would want to do to them. Because of, as I said before, because you didn't have gridlock have 7,000 Indians. What you tell me? You prefer 7,000 again knockoff? Then Jaguar or somebody was sitting them there to stop Granger. That is what you say. And it gets worse because, as I said, they got knocked off. All that the resources, human are not get wasted. And then what happened after? When the PPP come in, which I told them what happened, I said, the PPP will come back to government. They'll put these same people back in office, and none of you going to feel poorer.
Henry Jeffrey, my brother, thanks a lot for coming through tonight, as usual, and really enlightening discussion here tonight. Always something to learn about the nuances of our politics, and I can tell from your comments that you're all quite into it tonight. Henry, thanks, my brother.
Okay, my man.
Thank you very much. And Ravinev knows better. He knows better. He was once in favor of power sharing. He's once in favor of power sharing. He knows that power sharing ain't got nothing to do with land of minorities. If Indians are 45% and they get a 5% African, 6% Africans to go on the other side, to go with them, there's still 4 to 5% of their support is Indian. And still 90-odd%, 80-odd% on the other side is African. The fact of the matter is that Africans and Indians have said repeatedly from 1957, we do not want to be governed by the other race, by representative of that is frank. Indians don't want to be governed by the PNC, and black people don't want to be governed by the PPP. Even if you get a 5% Indian or 10% Indian that came over in 2015 via the AFC, by the time 2020, they're gone back. Because they're saying, we come to the AFC, we didn't know the AFC would have joined with the PNC. Right? So the fact of the matter is that Indians do not want to be governed by Africans. And Africans do not want to be governed by Indians. And Ravidev knows that. So Ravidev is telling us, oh, you get a 5% crossover and you govern. Well, you get 5% of Africans and they go over to the PPP. What they are doing is enabling the PPP to dominate African people and vice versa. So even if the PNC get a 5% crossover Indian vote, or the PPP get a 5% crossover Africa, it changes nothing because the vast majority of the race remains on their side of the fence. And when Indians came over, they came to the AFC. They created the AFC into a second Indian party. They didn't go to the PNC. They went to the AFC. And what people forget is that in 2006, Africans voted for the AFC because Raphael Trotman was a presidential candidate. That is when the PNC got the lowest ever score, 34% or something like that. They lost votes to the AFC. So the AFC was first an African party when Raphael was the presidential candidate. And then once Ramjatan and the Indian brothers and sisters from New York took over the thing, Africans went back, meaning went to the APNU, because by then, the WP and the PNC, by then the WPA was seen more as African. And so the Africans went back because the WPA now joined with the PNC. They left the AFC and went to the APNU. And then the Indians went into the AFC. They turned the AFC into an Indian party. And the AFC, which was saying it was not going to join with the PNC, once the AFC saw the WPA join with the PNC, they felt it was safe for them to join. And 2015, we cut the tail, right? My own view is that if the PNC leadership at that time understood what happened in 2015 was almost a fluke, and that you had to massage it in order to keep it, we might still, the coalition might still have been in power. But they felt, well, Indians came over and that was that. Indians came over, you had to keep them. And that was always going to be a challenge. It's good to look back at history. I hope the mistakes we make, we don't make them a second time. The fact of the matter is that Indian people do not want to be governed by Africans, and Africans don't want to be governed by Indians. And Amerindians are going to go down that road eventually, which is going to make Guyana an even more difficult place to govern under the present system. We've got to change the system. We've got to change the system. I think if we are guaranteed power, whether you bring first or you bring second, that at the end of the day, you know that your representative is going to be in the cabinet and making decisions. I think Indian people who don't like the PPP are going to be more inclined to vote for a third party because they will know whether the PPP bring first or bring second, they're going to be in the government. And African people who don't necessarily like the PNC would vote for a third party because they know that if the PNC bring first or bring second, their representative going to be at the table, meaning Black people will be at the table. And once people are guaranteed that at the end of the election, both races, both big parties will be at the table, then it frees up people to vote for third parties, because a vote for third party is really not a wasted vote then. People will tell you, no, if I vote for third party, I put it in the PPP. And if I vote for third party, if you're Indian, I put it in the PNC. So we have got to change the political system to a win-win system rather than a win-lose system. Are we going to do that? I don't know. I wish I knew the answer. We've been struggling with that. Good evening to all of you. I love the program tonight. Cyril Walker, I like your presentation to the fact-finding mission. Very impressed with your comments, and those of you who, some of you from this program and other programs that gave evidence to the fact-finding mission. Very good. Let me end with this. We have now hit the sweet spot. The best people to spread the word about what's happening in Guyana are African Americans. The best people to spread it in America. They understand what it is to be shot in bed. They understand what it is to have your house mowed down. They understand what it is for your votes not to be counted. They understand our plight in Guyana. And they're the best people to spread it in America. You know, it's good to have Congress people come who are, white people and so on. Even white Democrats, they're going to help you. They're going to listen to you. But they're not going to spread your word to the American people. The American people learn about what was happening in South Africa through the Black Caucus, through Trans-Africa. And that is what Irfan and them realize, that now we are on to something. So they accept the delegation that come from New York. They accept the delegation that come from Canada. But they reject this delegation of African Americans that come from Georgia and South Carolina. Because they know that this delegation understand what is happening, understand their dictatorship, understand their racist policies. And that is why they didn't meet with them. Well, it's good that they didn't meet with them, because that in itself is a fact that was found. That the government is hiding from certain people. So we got them where we want them. God don't come, but you send. Those people are going to go back to America, and through their organizations and their networks, they're going to spread in America what Black people and Amerindian people are going through in Guyana racially. It's not the only oppression. We know that the class oppression that Indians are going through, and Amerindian and Black people are going through oppression as a working class, as a lower class people. But ethnically, the people who are being oppressed are Africans and Amerindians. Africans more so than Amerindians, because Africans represent or vote for the political opposition. So that's where we are, my brothers and sisters. See you all tomorrow. See you all tomorrow. I'll be in Washington, D.C. for the Thanksgiving. As you all know, that's my American home. And so I'll be broadcasting from there for the rest of the week. Those of you who are traveling for Thanksgiving, safe travelers. To the rest of you, it's always my pleasure to be here and to share. Good program tonight. Thank you all. See you all tomorrow night.